Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hey, thank you for joining. I'm Rox Burkey, and I am so honored tonight to have with me an amazing person, Sharon C Jenkins. Welcome, Sharon.
I am so glad to be here, Roxy. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing great. I mean, you are such a very busy person. So we got so much I want to cover. Let's start out and let the audience know, who is Sharon C Jenkins, the author?
Well, Sharon C Jenkins is the author who is an author's author. You've heard of Train the Trainers. Well, I'm an author's author. I do those jump off the cliff kind of things to get the experience so that I can fine tune, problem solve, and perfect the writing process, writing, publishing, and marketing process.
I mean, that's amazing. So what you do is you just put your cape on and kind of launch off that cliff, huh, and help people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, girl, I'm not afraid. You know, I went in the military back a long time ago, and they broke me out of being afraid to do anything. If I could go in the gas chamber without a gas mask, I can do anything.
Well, you can, and you've written books, and now in 2019, you really brought yourself to a marketing and promotion about your brand overall, and a lot of that is helping other authors, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One of the beautiful things about what I do is I get to experience not just my own personal experience as an author, but also through various other genres. I get to experience what it's like to be a fiction author or a erotic author, or what it's like to be a historian or to write a memoir.
So do you take on these different personas when you do this? How do you merge between that? That's very interesting.
Well, you know, I've always had a vivid imagination as a young girl. I used to escape into a book, as so many of us have when we were kids, because maybe we were silent or closet nerds and we didn't know it. We just knew we weren't the outspoken kind of type. And so the books are the things that were our friends. And so I had books as friends, and you know, I learned to have a great appreciation for books and also for authors as a result.
So has that appreciation really brought you to what I think is your almost a love affair with authors? And really it's all kinds of authors. I mean, you have no limits to the authors that you will help and promote and so forth.
Well, part of that, Roxy, is simply because I believe if you can find the courage to put a word on a piece of paper, then you deserve the opportunity to see your dream become a reality. And in today's self-publishing brain, you can do that. In that self-publishing area or realm, you can do that.
Okay, so reading was a big part of your childhood, as it was with many of us. How did you decide to make that shift from reading to actually being an author? Did you have a starting point where you just jumped off that cliff?
Well, I've always been a secret actor or actress. You know, because if you have a vivid imagination, the next step is to take that imagination and bring some of it to reality. And so what happened to me was I was a closet poet for many years. And then my mother, you know, in my teen years recognized that I had a gift. And she wasn't the kind of woman that, you know, threw away vain praises. So in my rebellion, I was like, I'm not going to write because she wants me to write. What a dumb thing. But I was a teenager, you know what I mean? And so it wasn't until her death that I was able to figure out, okay, well, Mom says I could write, and she's, she has some smarts. She was a nurse and she worked in the emergency room. She's kind of smart. People admired her and admired her intellect and her gift. I said, maybe I should reconsider this. And in order to honor her, the fact that she did appreciate that side of me, I decided to venture into sharing some of my poetry in a poetry group. Now, I'm thinking back in the day that I was going to go to one of those village settings where you click your fingers and you flick your bag, that kind of thing. We'll all be in a circle and we'll be reading our poetry. But the woman who was in charge was a maniac. And what she wanted us to do was spoken word. And I did not share my pieces with anybody because they were too personal. And I didn't want anybody to criticize or judge them. So anyway, she made me really mad that day when we went over her house because I was so mad that a stranger asked me, well, are you okay? And I said, she didn't tell us that she wanted us to do that. I thought we were going to do blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, I'm taking an acting class and I would like to invite you to come to the acting class. And as a result of me going to that acting class, I started doing spoken word. So that was the beginning of my journey to see the words that I'd written on paper become alive. It was infectious to me. And then I didn't have to be my real self. I could be anybody else, any other character that was in the play. And then I started from poetry, spoken word, and then from spoken word, I actually went to playwriting. And so I wrote a couple of plays and I couldn't find anybody to produce them or direct them. So, I'm the jump off the cliff kind of girl. Give me my cape, I'll do anything. And so there I was directing and producing plays and all my cast members were angry with me. So I had to have a mediator in it because I'm like, just do it because I said do it. You know what I mean? I had that little attitude. But I share this with you. The big, bad, bold director and producer of my first play, at the end of the play, they couldn't find me because I was, again, hiding in the closet. I was back to my roots. And they found me, and when they did, they got me to come out of the closet. And when I did, they gave me a standing ovation. And all of that applause told me one thing, that I had the ability to write. And so that gave me the courage to venture off into other projects.
And boy, other projects you have. I mean, you've really ventured into a lot of different books, editing. I know that you've done a lot of editing for people. So let's look at that for just a minute. On the editing side, sometimes, as you were saying, it's very personal what you write, right? It's almost like a kid. And so when you have an editor that maybe is not as fond of your child as you are, how do you work through that with some of the authors that you help?
Well, I'll tell you my experience, if I may, my
Please.
very first experience, and then I'll tell you what I learned from it. I just found somebody who I trusted, who I knew, who I thought I trusted. And actually, she was a speech writer for President Carter. So I figured she had the what it took in order to edit my book. And so she had pity on me. So she gave me a reduced price. But let me tell you what she did. When I gave her my baby, this baby called Beyond the Closet Door Here, when I gave her this baby, I gave it to her in a manuscript. And she gave me the manuscript back full of red marks. I almost fell out on the floor. And on top of that, she was like, you have to go in and you have to make those changes in your document electronically. I was like, but I thought that's what you were supposed to do. So I had to learn two things from that experience, and that was I had to be a better self-editor. That's one thing. And the other thing is the editor make strong suggestions, but what you decide is what rules as the author. So I respect the fact that she was a professional. I respect the fact that she did an excellent job. And I respect the fact that she is at the top. Oh, well, she's still alive. So at the top of her class, I respect all of that, but I realize I had the final say so of what went in my book and what didn't go in my book. And so I saw author and editor as partners. That's what I said.
And is that how you bring it now when you start working with some of the authors that you've been helping and you've been editing for? Have you taken that to that step so they understand that it's a partnership and a collaboration?
Absolutely, because I don't want to be held accountable. And as an editor, you learn things. Some of my experience with other editors, they were mean. They were mean and they were calculative and they were just evil. You know, they would make mockery of your mistakes and the whole 9 yards. And if I'm in a partnership with you, I'm trying to build something, not tear you down. And I made a commitment to my office that I would never do that. Now, I've had some authors who didn't want to change their baby and who decided at the last minute that they were going to keep things the way that they were. And then maybe 6, 7 months, maybe a year, another person came behind me and told them the exact same thing that I told them. So sometimes you have to let authors take their licks. But then in another instance, as I have gone over and worked with several authors over this last 10 years, I've learned how to deliver my criticism with a sweeter taste.
Yeah, because I actually had an English teacher that was a lot like you first portrayed that editor from the netherworld, yes. And so a kinder, gentler editor, I can see what would be appreciated. So you like the editing aspect of what you do? Is that now a real focus for you, or is it the marketing that's better?
Well, the reason why I like editing is because in my mind, the way my mind is put together, I like to sort pieces and put them in alignment or put them in their proper place. So when I get a manuscript, that's what's at work in my head. And for some reason, my brain loves to do that. And I didn't know that until I started editing. So I see things in your manuscript that perhaps you don't see in your manuscript. I see rhythms, I see tones, you know, and sometimes I hear voices.
I think that is the perfect place for us to take a pause. We're going to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Please stick around, Sharon.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lecter, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson. just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lecter is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielecter.store. Use coupon code video19. Again, that's indielecter.store, coupon code video19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow.
And welcome back. I am Rox Burkey, and I'm with Sharon C Jenkins. And thank you for sticking around. Sharon, we had such a good time talking about how your career evolved from the closet poetress to, a writer and then a playwright. And I mean, busy. I want to jump a little more forward, and I want to focus in this segment on why you think storytelling is so important in our century today, and why you find so much value in it.
I think people are so, how can I say it, distracted by so many things. And in order to get their attention, whether you're writing a nonfiction book or a fiction book or a piece, a short story that speaks in either genre, the thing that I think is the hook is that story. The way a person can relate to something, a common experience, it acts as a bridge. And I believe because we live in a real world, and because of social media and because of technology, we can be in a place instantaneously in order to truly capture not just the attention, but the heart of somebody. You have to be able to tell a good story.
So are you saying then that the techniques for storytelling have changed that much?
I believe the basics will always remain the basics, but I think that when you as a writer are telling a story, you have to be very cognizant of the culture. Okay. Because if you're not, even though it's your self-expression, and even though you have a right to write whatever you want to write, you got to think about your reader. You know, my liberty as a writer comes in the fact that I'm able to relate to you, to communicate to you my point, or you're able to feel what I'm feeling. But if I'm not speaking your language, you'll never get there. If I don't find the bridge in the story that I'm telling that you can relate to so that you can cross over into my world, then I'm doing you a terrible disservice, because writing isn't always about me and my self-expression. Writing is also about educating, informing, exhorting, empowering, equipping, and even sometimes correcting people.
So, and that brings up a great point from an educator perspective, because I know that's part of what you do. How do we, as communicators or storytellers, learn those techniques? Because a lot of those things are not what the focus is in school today for young people. Does it make it harder for them to become storytellers?
I think we have to stop relying on institutions to do what we've been called to do. As storytellers, as writers, as creators, we have an obligation to empower the generation behind us to do likewise. So if the schools, if they're not doing it, if mom and dad's not doing it, then somebody needs to do it. And I can remember as a girl, the YWCAs and the Boys and Girl Clubs and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. And those are the places where we got those tools that we needed that spoke to the creative part of us. And if those things are no longer available or readily available, then the creatives of that age, from boomers or down to the millennials, have a responsibility to make sure that they equip future creatives, future storytellers to tell the story.
Yeah, and I think the story can't always be told on social media in 200 characters, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Or in shorthand.
Absolutely not.
5 letters. Yeah. So what part do you feel is the most valuable tool that you share with some of your authors and some of what you write to help enable that?
Well, I give authors permission to be authors.
Okay.
A society has defined authorship or authorpreneurship, one of my favorite words,
I love that word. Yeah.
as something that they can understand, but the author themselves is the one. They define that word for themselves. They define what that looks like, and they set the standard, not society. See, I know you, but I don't know you unless I spend time with you, unless we fellowship, unless we eat lunch together, if we hang out, listen to some music, then maybe I might get to know you a little bit better. The only person who really knows you is you. So you know what your limitations are, you know what areas you excel in. So as an author, we get to define what that is. And, you know, I'm all for the way things used to be because it worked during that time and that period where you had the big publishing houses and you couldn't get a book out unless, you know, you went through one of those, you know, it wouldn't be successful and people were frowning on self-publishing and all that other kind of stuff. I believe everything in the journey that we've been on in regards to writing books has been necessary for that age. And so now we've got this wonderful place where anybody can write a book. Now, will they write a good book? That's something different. And do they have to be very careful about who they write a book with? Because somebody who just wrote one book may say, I'm an expert, and then they may take your money and run off somewhere to Florida. Well, I get that. I get that. You have to be discerning. But in this age, you get to define what authorship is for you. You get to define who you are as an entrepreneur. And one of the reasons why I started working with authors is because we did not have the mindset of a business owner. I was in a room with a bunch of entrepreneurs and they asked all the business owners to stand up, and not an author stood up except for me, because we are business owners, but we don't sacrifice our creativity when we acknowledge that we are entrepreneurs.
So there's different statistics I've heard over the last few years about what percentage of an author's work is the marketing and the business side versus the creative storytelling side. And I know a lot of authors struggle with that because they like one side versus the other. But what do you feel from your experiences is the right balance of time and effort?
I think when you look at your personal mission as an author, what is it that you want to accomplish? That defines how much of you that you pour into that process. For example, if it's going to be a lifestyle, a career choice for you, then obviously the average startup business owner may work 80 hours a week, and that's normal. They may do that for a year. Well, if, you know, writing is your career choice or entrepreneurship is your career choice, then you're going to have to put that sweat equity in order to make things work for you, in order for things to be profitable. Now, if it's a hobby, that's another thing. Maybe you have a 9-to-5 and all, you know, it takes care of all your financial needs and it gives you the atta girl or the atta boys that you need. It strokes you where you want to be stroked. And on the other side, that's that creative side of you that you don't want to let go of. Well, in that case, your need for the process or the time invested in that process is not going to be the same as somebody who wants to make it a career choice or wants to open a business around it.
There you go. But if a person isn't willing, they don't have a big publishing house behind them, but they're not willing to do the marketing themselves, then this valuable story that they've put together and maybe put their heart and soul into may not be heard.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really bugs the mess out of me is everybody thinks they're going to be a New York Times best-selling author. God, I thought I was going to be one. But, it's still on my vision board. But that's not the thing that defines me. What defines me is that my story, the stories that I tell or the people that I help, that they're able to do what they do and do it with excellence as a result of my assistance. And that gives me what I need inwardly to say, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this. Because sometimes I get a mean girl, or sometimes I'll get a guy who is kind of arrogant and pushy. And I've learned to spot the signals and the signs. That's not a good match for me. I need you to have some heart in the game. So if this is just something that you're doing to make a buck, or you think you're gonna make a buck from it, maybe I'm not the best person to work with.
And that is another perfect place for us to take a pause. We need to take a break and listen to our sponsors. And then I want to come right back and kind of wrap up with a few other really salient points, Sharon. So please stick around.
Okay.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? I'm Charlotte Kenyon, award-winning author of the book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. That was a question I had to ask myself some 16 years ago, and you'll have to ask the same question. I had a father-in-law with dementia, a mother with Alzheimer's, and a dad with Parkinson, all at the same time.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
I'm Rox Burkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Burkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
I'm Rox Burkey, and we are here with Sharon C Jenkins. Thank you for staying around. And Sharon, so much fun talking about different things, and I know you love to help people. So let's focus on that. Where can people find you? What's the best place?
Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I decided that a website, though it is a nice thing to have, to me, it's just a placemat for information. For other people, they've sold zillions of books off of their websites, but for me, I want you to reach out to me on social media. Facebook is a great place to find me, Sharon C Jenkins, or the Mac Writing Services. Mac like McDonald's, MC, the Mac Writing Services. And also on LinkedIn, Sharon C Jenkins, and on Instagram, Sharon C Jenkins.
And I think we want to just highlight that Sharon C is important, and you and I spoke about that earlier. It is your differentiator. It is your brand. So finding you with Sharon C Jenkins is very important, right?
Absolutely. Google me.
How many different people do you take on? I mean, if someone really wants your help and reaches out to you through one of those vehicles, how hard is it to get you to say, okay, I will help you, or is it easy?
Well, it's not easy, but it's not hard. May I give you a snapshot of my day?
Yes, please.
First thing this morning, I'm talking to an author about her book cover who I met last week, and she wasn't satisfied with her book cover design. And then I had to school her on the purpose of an ebook. So meanwhile, after that, I'm running to respiratory therapy. So I do my little therapy thing. Then I'm also in the car talking to another author about another cover. She's written a book, and I've got the cover back from the designer. And then I'm working on a cookbook, and it's due to be launched the second week of October. So I'm talking to the printer, I'm talking to the designer, and then I'm in Missouri City somewhere. That's where we talked on the way. I'm in Missouri City somewhere taking a video, doing a video interview of somebody for a scholarship banquet. So there's tons. Oh, and then I had an interview. I was being interviewed for a potential client who is a gospel legend. So that's my day. If you reach out and touch me, you can get me, but it may be, 24, 48 hours before I can respond to you.
There you go. But you, I would say the best way is to go ahead and reach out, use those connections through social media or LinkedIn, and you will respond in a very reasonable period of time and get that conversation going. Obviously, you're not afraid of working with people, and you have a heart for authors.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I love authors. They are my superheroes. And when I faced that realization, it really changed my life. I stopped regretting some of the bad relationships I had with authors, because we're human and we're frail. And sometimes things aren't the optimum. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I learned to see the beauty in everything that I do for authors. And I really love you guys.
Well, listen, I hate to say we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us, Sharon C. Jenkins. It's been a delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.